Okay, so this is a brief demonstration of some of the tools and the configurations that we'll be needing to set up to run our security education laboratory, the SEED stuff. There's a couple of different pieces we're going to be working with here. So one is the documentation from SEED. Another is the downloading and the configuration of the virtual machine, basically the operating system for the virtual machine itself, and then finally the actual machine we'll be setting up. All right, so I'm running this on a Mac. All right, so yours may look a little bit different. And I'm also going to run this on VMware, which is a different type of virtual machine. But basically, the mechanics of this work pretty much the same way whether we're running either VirtualBox or if we're running VMware. All right. So the documentation on the SEED site from it's on the if you take a look at the labs, you download a zip file. This is a SEED document file. All right, see documentation 2. Um, if you unzip it, you double click on it, you unzip it, what you'll get is a folder here, and you've got a couple things here. Environment setup. So this right here is these 3 documents here will really explain what we have in terms of the virtual machine setup, basically the lab setup. What we get from SEED is pretty much a pre-built machine, so we don't have to spend a lot of time building an entire new environment. That's basically part and parcel of their of what SEED is delivering for us. All right. So if you take a look at this first PDF here, in the environmental setup, um, kind of step through this. What we're using is something called the machine, the operating system these things are running on is a variant of Linux called Ubuntu. All right, so there's a whole bunch of different types of Linux machines. This is just a particular version flavor of um, the Linux operating system. All right, so and what happens is this is all pretty much pre-packaged, pre-built. So hopefully we'll be able to get started, kind of working our way through the laboratory without necessarily having to go through the whole exercise of setting up these machines. Because actually the configuration is with all the layered products and all the software that goes with it, fairly sophisticated. Okay, so this will just kind of walk you through the environmental setup for that, and then if we take a look, let's go back. So that's the documentation. The VirtualBox, which is the software or the virtual machine software, the thing that actually creates the environment we run virtual machines in, can be downloaded and installed. So this is on a Mac. So if I explode this out, you'll see a Mac installation dialog coming up. Basically works the same way on Windows, so it shouldn't be too much of a difference between the two um, environments. It'll open up it'll it'll open up the installation package and then step you through the execution. So what we'll have when we're done with this, when this actually executes, is another piece of software on here, VirtualBox in this case, which will let us be able to run programs or run machines, run virtual machines, create virtual machines, um, transfer virtual machines. So this is you should see something um, in the VM environment on your machine. Something should look similar to this. All right, this the downloading. So there's a user manual for it. Just double click on the VirtualBox package and it will install it. I'll install your machine on a Macintosh. You can find it in your applications folder, but in Windows, I think you'll see it in the under the start menu. So let's get out of this real quick. So what I want to do now is the third part of this. Okay, so the third part of this is okay. Here's the folder I'm in. Okay, so the third part is actually the virtual machine itself. So what happens is the VirtualBox lets us set up the environment. This seed Ubuntu 12.04 zip is the actual virtual machine. So this is a pre-built machine, fairly large. So one of the things you want to take a look at on your machine is the actual compressed file. The zip file is actually 2 gig by itself. When it expands this out, and we look at the details on it, it's a pretty substantial little program. So you want to take a look at how much disk space you have and make sure you've got enough disk space. You're not going to completely consume all the disk space on your machine. You have to have some disk space available in order to be able to successfully run this stuff. All right, so it takes a couple of minutes for this to fully expand. Then we'll take a look at what the resulting folder that it creates looks like. Okay, and sort of the magic of editing, I've gone ahead and expanded this out without having to sit here staring at it. Okay, so what you'll see is when you expand this zip file out, you'll get to it'll create basically a folder, local folder called Seed Ubuntu 12.04. Is actually 6.69 gig. So I think the total when we have this, a combination of the zip file, because when you expand the zip file will still be on the machine. So we'll download the zip file from the website, expand it out. We'll probably require about probably like 8 or 9, 9 gig of space in order to set this up correctly. So something you want to check on your machines locally that you'll have that much space. All right, so if we double click on this, what you're going to see is we've got a whole bunch of files. All right, so what these are actually you see these files with the VMDKs in them. What these are actual virtual disk drives, all right, that can be used VMware or VirtualBox can read and process these files. So we've got, you can see, we've got a whole bunch of these, a whole series of files out here that are all established. We have a couple log files, and what you should see here is there's this seed Ubuntu 12.04 VMX. All right, so this is the actual virtual machine itself. All of these other things, for the most part, are disks that are assigned to the virtual machine. So I'm running VMware on my machine, so I'm not running. I don't have I have VirtualBox installed, but I'm running for this demonstration. We're going to be using VMware. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to double click on this seed Ubuntu 12.04 VMX. And what it should do is it should fire up the virtual machine. So you may see something like this. Do you want to upgrade this virtual machine? You say upgrade. All right, and you'll see should see a screen that looks kind of like this. You know, okay, yeah, we know that. Okay, see, this is actually VMware stuff. I don't think you'll get this with VirtualBox. I'll just say I copied it. Okay, so you should get a window here. It says Seed Ubuntu 12.04. Expand this out. So we just have a full screen here. And there's actually, as I expanded this out, it's actually starting the virtual machine. So it's actually booting the Linux machine on your existing machine, or if you're on a Windows machine, it's actually creating a virtual machine that's running Linux, and that machine is running inside of your Windows machine. So it'll take a couple minutes for it to start up. It's a fairly, as I said, it's a 6 gig system, so it's a fairly um, robust machine. Okay, and you may get some messages when you first start up. So this is all the Linux operating system starting up. You may or may not get some messages as the machine is coming online around with the disk drive. Sometimes you may have to make some adjustments on the virtual machine configuration because this is set up as a kind of a generic implementation, and what we're getting is actually we're actually implementing a you know, installing it on a particular platform. We can adjust the parameters or the configurations of the individual machine to fit um, what we would need, like add processors and stuff. So we're running Ubuntu. Ubuntu is as I said, a variant of the Linux operating system. Um, there's a couple different ones that are out there. There's Core OS. There's Ubuntu. Ubuntu's pretty well known, and it's um, you know, It's very functional. Actually, a lot of organizations made a lot of use of this. Is more of a kind of a. It's really kind of set up as a desktop machine. You'll see a lot of organizations will be using um, Linux as their to run their like large data center like servers and things of that nature. Looks like we're getting close. Okay. So what will come up is when this thing finally starts, what you'll get is a um, a login screen here. Okay, with seed password. Um, the documentation, there's a preset passwords in there. You can take a look in the documentation. That'll give you the password you'll need to get to as it comes up. So we're running Ubuntu 12.04 is the version that we're working with here. All right now, there's other versions, but this, as I said, what these machines are pre-packaged with all the utilities and all of the um, Wireshark pieces that we would need. So you might get an error message. You may get a message here, you know, because it's attempting to monitor. Because that's basically what these machines are designed to. These VMs are designed to do for us here. All right, and then to get in, what you would do is you would just simply enter the password, press return, and we're off to the races. Okay, so we will be working. This is kind of our first look at this. We'll be, continuing to press forward with this as we're start getting into the labs over the course of the semester. And that's about it.